So will you all please join me in welcoming Republican candidate for Lieutenant Governor, Russ Diamond.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. Come on, good evening. Come on, make some noise. You know, it's really awesome to be here with the Berks County Patriots. I am running for Lieutenant Governor, and I want you to think about three things when you're selecting the best candidate for Lieutenant Governor. Three things to keep in mind. Number one, can this person help our next governor candidate beat Josh Shapiro? That is goal number one this year. Beat Josh Shapiro. Number two, can this candidate help our next governor hit the ground running to create policies that turn Pennsylvania around after they're elected? That's question number two. Question number three, it's the entire reason that we have a lieutenant governor. Is this person best suited to step into the role of the governorship should, God forbid, some tragedy befall our governor? Folks, I want to tell you why I am uniquely qualified in all three of those categories. Number one, I have been with you and the people of Pennsylvania, especially over the last 2 years. Folks, it took 462 days, many legislative battles, a Supreme Court showdown, 2 constitutional amendments, and more legislative battles to finally end Tom Wolf's tyranny. Give yourselves a hand for doing that, by the way. 462 days. But on day 11, exactly 2 years ago today, St. Patrick's Day 2020, I was the legislator who put forth a termination resolution. They called me crazy. They called me radical. They said I wanted everybody to get sick. But in the end, the majority of the legislature agreed with me, and the majority of Pennsylvania voters agreed with me. I was right. Tom Wolf needed shut down. We shut him down. And at the end of that process, when our leadership in Harrisburg put forth a partial termination, it was my amendment that made that a full termination to bring Tom Wolf's tyranny to a halt. Folks, I stopped Tom Wolf. End of story. I did it. Number two, I've been at the forefront of election integrity since before the November 2020 election. In September 2020, I sued the counties of Philadelphia, Delaware, and Center over those Zuckerbucks that came in that essentially turned into a get-out-the-vote effort for Joe Biden. I sued in federal court along with 7 other legislators. Unfortunately, the federal court threw that case out. And then after the 2020 election, Dean Klopp told you about phantom voters and what Dr. Frank found. I was on the team that figured that out. We figured out the whole phantom voter theory, and then it's been proven out as Dean and his teams are knocking on doors and figuring out that's actually right. I was right about that. Folks, I was the first legislator to stand up against mask mandates. They called me crazy, they called me radical, but in the end, I was right. In July of 2020, I was the first legislator to talk about the long-term effects of putting kids through these stupid mitigation measures in schools, both the negative consequences for them academically and psychologically. They called me crazy, they called me radical. They said I wanted kids to get sick, but I was right. We're seeing the test score results now. I was right all along, folks. And also in July 2020, before there was ever a COVID-19 vaccine, we had just barely heard of this Operation Warp Speed. I was the legislator who put in the bill to protect Pennsylvanians from vaccine mandates. And now I've elevated that to a constitutional amendment, that's House Bill 2013, that would establish medical freedom as a fundamental individual right that can never be violated in Pennsylvania. The only excuse, the only exemption you should ever need against any kind of vaccination is, I do not want that shot, thank you very much. Your medical freedom is important. Also want to go back to talk about election integrity a little bit more. Dean talked about House Bill 25 and the Senate bill, I think it's 884, to repeal Act 77. I will tell you why I'm not a co-sponsor of House Bill 25 in the House. Because it is a bill that has to be signed by a governor. This governor will not sign any election integrity bill. And that's why I have another constitutional amendment that will make no excuse mail-in voting illegal forever. It doesn't have to get by a governor. It goes through the House and the Senate and then goes on the ballot so that you can decide. You can decide whether you want this crazy no excuse mail-in voting. Folks, I've been right all along about all these issues, and that's how I can help our next governor beat Josh Shapiro. Now let's talk about once elected, what's going to happen. We need a governor who has a relationship with the General Assembly. These two branches of government need to work together to turn the ship of Pennsylvania around. You're going to need somebody who already has established relationships with House members and senators who can introduce that governor and talk to those House members and senators about their policy and priorities. I'm perfectly suited to do that, folks. No other candidate in this race has those established relationships with current legislators in Harrisburg. And finally, let me tell you why I'm uniquely qualified to step into that role of governorship if tragedy befalls our next governor. Folks, this is no place for on-the-job training. You need someone who's experienced and has been around the block a time or two. Look, I've not just been in Harrisburg for 7 years as a legislator, but before that, anybody here remember the midnight pay raise of 2005? Anybody remember that? Well, I was that guy who ran across the state and recruited 113 candidates to challenge legislators. We threw out a Supreme Court justice for the first time. A number of those candidates became members of the House of Representatives. One of them was one of my predecessor. Another one of them is currently the Speaker of the House. Folks, I've been working on behalf of the people for 18 years, but I also have extensive experience in the private sector. My business is celebrating its 30th year this year. Folks, I've signed the front of a paycheck. I've also signed the back of a paycheck. I was a factory worker for 7 years, slinging plastic 12-hour shifts overnight. I've been a truck driver. I've been a working musician. I'm an author. I'm a pilot. I have a broad swath of life experience to pull from. So in case something happens to our next governor, that transition, instead of a shock to the Commonwealth, will be a smooth transition. Folks, I am uniquely qualified to be your next governor. I want you to think about one thing. When you are looking for the best candidate for lieutenant governor, you need to look no further than the one person who already stopped the worst governor in Pennsylvania history. I stopped Tom Wolf. I fought for you for 18 years. I will continue to fight for you as your lieutenant governor. And I ask for your support and your vote. My name is Russ Diamond. My website is russdiamond.vote, not .com, not .org, .net. russdiamond.vote. Please visit my website. I've got a fantastic new music video you can see there. russdiamond.vote. I ask for your support. Berks Patriots. May God bless you. May God bless the Commonwealth. And may God bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. Have a great night.